Now, changing paint, changing techniques, 30 years, where are we at? Okay, so now we're going to start with this new concept, okay? A 3D print grown for this to represent this T-Rex eye, which we're going to be talking about today. I am not going to be painting this to look like this exactly. We're going to interpret this the way I would interpret it now if someone said, I'd like to make this eye. This eye right here was based off an eagle eye. The original concept was this, which is an eagle eye, pretty much, you know. There was a lot of back and forth. I know that for a lot of the dinosaurs, Stan wanted to see the whites of the eyes, you know, like a big cow eye. I want to see something going on. So we did do a lot of designs where we had, you know, an iris that ended, and then we had a sclera, and we had a color. The brachiosaur, the sick triceratops, we had a baby triceratops, which had it's basically a cow eye. This is the baby triceratops that never made it into the film, but started doing that. I don't know at what point, and I think it was Spielberg changed his mind and wanted to see this because he didn't want to see a white back and forth. He kind of just wanted the eye in there. So again, when we did tests, we would put, and I think some of the pictures you'll see, we would put eyes behind so that you could see what's going on in there. What are we really going to see? What's the movement going to be? You know, T-Rex has got a side eye. Okay, so there you go. This is what we're going to see. So do we like that? And we would have meetings, and Stan and Steven and myself and John and Shane, we'd all sit around and look at these and say, okay, what do we want to see? Does this work? Or do we want to do something that is just a full eye? Full eye wins. Okay, so we start with full eye now. Okay? This eye right here, even though it does not have an iris, it does have a dimensional look. It does have a drop-down brown look that kind of simulates something that's going on under it. That's what Sam designed for me to represent the underlayer, the darkened underlayer. So this, what you're looking at, and if some of you can't kind of understand where this is kind of going, this represents the first layer. And we'll talk about layers a lot. This is the first layer. Whenever I do my layering process, I try to do a darker layer first because there's always a slightly darker layer, like in this one, around the pupil, fading off to where then the iris has the secondary level. And you always have cells, what I call them. You have open cells here and there that you can punctuate with color as well. And open cells are, like I guess in this one, you can see the star bright. You know, you've got some cells there. Human eyes themselves have a lot of cell structure, a lot of corrugation, a lot of, you know, veining going over the top of other veins so that you're getting a lattice work of texture. And that's what we're trying to do, is we're trying to create that lattice work and give it depth. Okay? So here's a good example. Here's a velociraptor eye. This was a sculpted core. So this was sculpted with all the cracks. I don't know if you can see that the pupil itself is kind of got a little high rise on it. So I guess that was the basis of 3D designing right there. So this has cells in it, has pockets. If I were to design this one again, I would probably, this would be my whole underlayer. And I would go back over the top of it with more veining, break some of that up, give it a little more depth to it. There you go. Okay, so this is the first eye that we kind of talked about, the original eye that has an iris to it, which is based on an eagle eye. So those are the first eyes that we painted to basically do a show and tell. That's the second eye. It might be the one I have, but again, that is now another art designed for the powers that be to look at and decide if we're in the ballpark. The good thing is that the color that we chose stayed. We didn't really deviate from the ochres and the yellows and the browns. Everything pretty much stayed color-wise in that arena. So it was just coming up with the art now for it. There are two more looks at the T-Rex eye, and we have a couple of the, it looks like the baby Triceratops. And those are two more just paint concept designs for powers that be to make a decision. Those were not chosen. I don't recall why they weren't chosen. It could be maybe there was too much brown striking out from around the pupil. I don't remember. We just went with something that was a little more plain. And there's, oh, look at that dude. There is a giant speed rail that I'm painting all the eye bucks on. We had one T-Rex, but apparently 400 eyes, so there you go. So that is the beginning of the bucks. There are some more bucks that we're painting, the ID as we'll call it, and again, doing a lot of, and we'll talk about hand painting and airbrush painting because that's what I do. I paint by hand as well as by airbrush. So yeah, and here's a perfect example of the under layer of dark color. You can see how dark it is around the pupil that will then be covered up with a lot of the veining and the muscleage of the iris itself to collect that and to punch out the pupil so it didn't look so ruddy and dirty, which I think is why we went with this concept, because it didn't have a lot of that explosion of dark color coming out around the pupil. Another beginning of the T-Rex eyes. There is the chosen hero T-Rex eye that became the iconic dilating eye and history in the making until they changed it in every film. That, I believe I was painting the 5th scale T-Rex eye. All right, now we're getting into Velociraptor eyes. We made probably 15 different looks for the Velociraptor. Again, the good thing is that we stayed in that green arena, and those eyes were based on a snake, I believe. And there is the final Velociraptor eye with the sculpted core and a little bit of cell work going on in it, but I was young and didn't know how to paint, so there you go. Yeah, look at that guy. And there I am working on one of the toenails for the sick Triceratops. What ended up happening is we really didn't have anyone to do any of the accessories. I was the dinosaur accessories guy. And I had talked to Stan and I told him, it'd be really nice to do all of these pieces in the same process I do eyes, where we'd make a buck, I would paint on it, and then we would encase it in dental acrylic. So we ended up doing that, and the toenails and the spikes gained a lot of life because there was more clarity around the paint job, and the paint job was now internal. So you could go over it and it wouldn't scratch off. And that was the other thing that was, I think, a godsend, was that you wouldn't have to touch up paint because the entire paint job was surrounded by clear dental acrylic. And there are the spikes for the top of the sick Triceratops. So I sculpted all of those for Joey Arasso's incredible sculpture. And those are all the same way. There you can see the 2-layer process. So you can see the bucks, which are the lighter tan color, and then the darker color is the nail over the top of it. I believe. It's been a long time, but yeah, that was the beginning of what was a incredible ride for me. It was history making for, I think, the movie industry. It was the beginning of eye and teeth departments in studios. Stan had the first dedicated shop within a shop department for doing eyes and teeth. So I was in charge of doing anything that was acrylic, anything that we had to do that was an accessory. And there you go.